Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with the Hurricane Outlook and discussion for May 26, 2020, recorded around 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. While we do have Invest 91L out here in the southwestern Atlantic, the big rainmaker that brought all of the rain and precipitation to portions of the southern Florida regions and the Florida East Coast yesterday and early this morning, leaving over about 10 inches of rain in spots, has now moved out into the open Atlantic waters here, following just very closely to the Gulf Stream that runs through here. And as such, there is a chance for development with the system, as we've seen consolidation here of a closed low-level center and thunderstorms firing around the center of circulation. That is going to continue to promote the chance for some development as it generally moves off towards the northeast here or north-northeast over the next coming days. This is expected to eventually move inland somewhere either in North Carolina or South Carolina over the next coming days. The National Hurricane Center has only given Invest 90L a 30% chance of development over the next coming days, but again, we are going to be continuing to watch that. Taking a look here at the sea surface temperature anomalies, this was updated as of yesterday, May the 25th. This always runs about a day behind. You do notice that our La Nina conditions are setting up here across the Nino 3.4 region, which is roughly this area in through about here. And our Atlantic main development region is still fairly warm above the long-term average, about a half a degree Celsius to a full degree Celsius above the long-term average. Again, the Nino, or the more so the AMO signals, what we're going to be transitioning to, is still in a very weird pattern with this AMO Phase 2, which favors the subtropical Atlantic, and an AMO Phase 1, which favors the main development region. But for the most part, we have really concentrated most of our energy down here in the Atlantic main development regions and just a tad bit of the subtropical Atlantic. But again, there is a good bit of energy out here in the main development region to work with. And you can see here on the Nino 3.4 regions, this is coming from tropicaltidbits.com. You do notice that over the last several weeks, we've just been in this very big plummet, and this has continued to fall rapidly over the last several weeks. And our daily contributor today is actually negative 5.0 or negative 0.502, which has now crossed into that magical La Nina threshold. Now, once again, just because we are in a La Nina threshold does not mean this has been classified or is officially an El Nino. We are not officially in an El Nino quite yet, or La Nina, sorry, a La Nina quite yet, as it's still going to take some time to generally, it takes about 3 to 5 months for it to get an actual designation, either La Nina or El Nino, and in this case it would be, we're heading towards a La Nina. Now, taking a look at the actual sea surface temperatures, this is coming off of the CDAS methodology, a different way to analyze everything. This is analyzed as of 7 o'clock this morning. Again, our Invest, which is Invest 91L rather, is positioned right in about here. And again, it's going to work within a relatively favorable environment sea surface temperature-wise over the next coming days. Again, this is better. This is a slightly better environment in the sea surface temperature profile than Arthur had to work with. And remember how Arthur turned out, was a very disorganized system until it got into the Gulf Stream. With 91L, this is going to have a little bit more kick from that Gulf Stream. And if we take a look here at the actual radar, this is coming off of the Melbourne radar site. You do notice where we have a lot more in the way of actual energy and vorticity that is located out and through here. And this is our general area of where 91L is roughly located at. So over the next coming days, this is going to be a big rainmaker for portions of the South Carolina and North Carolina coastlines here, as this tries to establish something and finally gets ready to pull away from Florida. But again, for the most part, the Gulf of Mexico is warm enough to support hurricanes and tropical cyclones, and generally west of about 50 degrees west and south of 30 degrees north, we are in that favorable zone, if you will, for tropical cyclone development based on the sea surface temperature-wise. Upper ocean heat content, again, for reference, you're looking at the scale. The higher you go up towards these greens and yellows, the more upper ocean heat content you're actually getting down in there. And again, our system 91L actually has somewhat of a favorable upper ocean heat content pattern is that's running through the Gulf Stream. Again, the Gulf Stream, for reference, is a stream of water that's constantly moving and pumping in more warmer air. It's a flowing concurrently through there. So again, that is not going to be a problem, as 91L should be in a really favorable environment in terms of the temperature profile for the sea surface temperatures. Again, we're also watching the Caribbean for maybe some development towards the end of June, or the beginning of June rather, end of May. Again, but the upper ocean heat content values are generally favorable across this area, so we are heading generally towards a more favorable environment overall for the support of tropical cyclone development. Taking a look at 91L here, you do notice that we've seen this pull away from Florida. Again, there is still some showers and thunderstorms that remain over the Florida Peninsula, especially over the North Florida Peninsula right now, that we are seeing these scattered showers and thunderstorms develop across that area. Some other agitated cumulus down here more towards central Florida. But this is roughly the center of 91L, roughly. And you do notice we do have some pretty good convective bursts that are occurring around the center. And again, this is our best shot of development over the next 12 to 18 hours for a short-lived, brief tropical system. Again, this is expected to move inland relatively soon, within the next 12 to 24 hours across either South Carolina or North Carolina, and bring in copious amounts of rainfall across that region. If we take a look here at the 850 millibar vorticity, this is coming off the spin about 5,000 feet off the ground. You do notice that we do have an area of concentrated vorticity. The higher you go up in the scale, the more vorticity you're getting, or cyclonic turning, at about 5,000 feet off the ground. You do notice that we do have a fairly good area of vorticity that's stretched out across this region, which should support some consolidation as this continues to move off towards the north and east here. And taking a look here at the intensity guidance, though, this is the 18Z guidance coming off of tropicaltidbits.com. None of the models are really indicative of this becoming a tropical storm. Again, really only the LGM model, but this is way out there in time. So we're really focused on the next about 24 hours, and none of the models so far have this becoming at tropical storm strength, although this could be a weak tropical depression. The one thing playing not so much in its favor is going to be the vertical wind shear. To the south of the system, we have about 10 to 15 to 20 knots of shear. But across the top of the system, we still have about 40 knots of wind shear, so there's still some fairly respectable wind shear across this region, which is going to prevent any sort of development, any sort of substantial development, although we are likely to see a decrease in vertical wind shear over the next coming hours, but it might be too late, too little too late across this area. So, one thing to monitor. Now, the GFS forecast does show development of a center further off towards the east, and this is going to allow a little bit more time over water, and the GFS has it not making landfall until about 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. But again, other than that, this has a little over about 24 hours of actual work time, and this could be a weak tropical depression by the time it gets there. For reference, this is the European model out to about the next 24 hours. Again, 2 weak areas of vorticity, one inland near in south of Atlanta, Georgia, and one stretched out area of vorticity right there off of Savannah and Hilton Head Island to the south there, stretching off of and away from the Florida coastline. So again, the European is not overly excited with this, and whatever weak vorticity does make it onshore carries it up here into the Virginia area, bringing copious amounts of rainfall potentially for portions of the Carolina coastline. So that's going to be one thing to monitor here over the next coming hours, is exactly, do we get a center reformation further east to allow it more time over water in a little bit more favorable of an environment, or does this stay closer to the coast and hug it to the point that we don't get any sort of development? Also to note, the GFS does forecast a tropical cyclone to hit portions of Central America over the next coming days here. This is going to be one thing to watch as we get the Central American gyre to set up, and the GFS is actually forecasting this to be a formidable system, and then try to spin up something here either in the Atlantic Basin or so. But again, we are not really forecasting much as of right now, other than there could be a formidable system down here in the Central America region. The National Hurricane Center right now is giving us a 70 or about a 60% chance of development over the next coming 5 days here. For reference, this is the European forecast out to about the next 144 hours. Again, even the European model is on board with some sort of tropical cyclone genesis across this region over the next coming days. So it's going to be one thing to monitor. Again, we do have Invest 91L here out across the portions, of eastern Florida. This will be moving up towards the Carolina coastline over the next 12 to 24 hours and could bring a chance for rainfall. Not expecting any significant development, but again, we will continue to watch here, certainly over the next coming days, for 91L here to move up off towards the north. And again, we're also watching our tropical system that could form out there across portions of Central America. I will be back with another video forecast update later this evening. I hope you all have a great rest of your afternoon and evening, and I'll see you back here later this evening with another video forecast update.